Welcome to our inaugural roundtable. I'm Lydia Moynihan, financial correspondent at The Post, and each week, New York Post columnist and Fox Business correspondent Charles Gasparino and I are cutting through the noise and diving straight into the biggest stories shaping business, tech, and politics. We'll tackle what's moving markets, what's happening in Silicon Valley, and what's driving decisions in D.C., with no fluff and plenty of debate. And we won't be doing it alone. We'll be joined by some of the most plugged-in voices across the industry to help make sense of what matters now and what is coming next. So whether you're on Wall Street, Main Street, or just trying to keep up, this is where business, tech, and politics intersect, and where we're not afraid to ask the tough questions. Let's get into it. Crazy week in Iran.
Yes.
Is real. Markets aren't happy with the Fed decision. What's your take on that? Is Jerome Powell long for this world?
Well, I mean, as long as his term is going, he's long for it. I highly doubt he's getting a second term. I mean, it's just, I mean, for all the reasons we know, and Trump has signaled many times that he still would love to fire him. Just the market impact of doing that would just be, it'd be a problem, particularly as he's doing tariffs, which is already unsettling for the markets. So Jerome Powell not cutting rates. I'm sure imminently we're going to get a mean tweet from Donald Trump. So saying something nasty about Trump Powell week. I don't know. What does he call him? He has a bunch of names for him, as he does with everybody.
He does.
So
and he's very good at that.
I'm expecting that. I don't know how you feel about this, but I do worry about the Fed being an independent agency.
Yeah.
I do see that the Fed needs to be reined in as well. I mean, let's face it. Jerome Powell missed the boat on inflation. It's hard to trust him on this thing.
He's lost a lot of credibility.
And we do have, the potential of an economic slowdown. I mean, clearly there are numbers out there that are kicking in that show the economy that could be slowing, and these are employment numbers. So that's weighing on the markets. The Iran-Israel situation is fascinating from a standpoint. If you're like me and you cover markets, it's just wild to think like how Wall Street looks at this.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's the end of the world. And they're talking about lower interest rates. It could be higher interest rates.
These geopolitical events rarely impact the markets in the way that you would expect them to, which is kind of surprising.
Well, it depends on how existential they are. I think what the markets are saying now, and by the way, it's funny because I call up a bunch of CEO types and they're like, I'm saying, okay, do you have any insight into whether the U.S. is going to allow the Israelis to drop the big one on them, meaning that bunker buster?
They need us to do it. They can't do it.
Right. So they're following that.
Yeah.
And they think, yes. They think in the next couple of days, it's not a nuclear bomb.
Good
but
for
it's
defense contractors.
Yeah.
Those stocks have gone up.
Yeah, I'm sure. But anyway, so they are following this. And I think one of the reasons why the markets are pretty calm, oil prices, again, calm, is because the markets are looking at this long term. They're saying if Israel can literally take the Iranians out in a way to diminish their capability as a nuclear power, as a belligerent for the Middle East, defunding the Houthis that disrupt shipping through this Strait of Hormuz, you're going to get. It's net better for the economy. I will say all bets are off if somehow America gets drawn into a quagmire nation building. I mean, then that is just not good either politically for Donald Trump or for the markets. I remember when we were like, oh, we're going to get rid of the Iraqis in 3 days. Saddam's going to fall, and then we're all of a sudden in there for 10 years. I think that's a real problem.
Don't have a great history of regime change. Oh, you're absolutely right.
That's a real problem. You're not supposed to agree with me so much.
Okay, one other talk about conflagration this week is the possibility that Zohran Mamdani takes over. And this is from a story in the Post yesterday that Zohran Mamdani has barely ever held a job, admitted he's a Nepo baby, has no experience in local government, any government. He's lived most of his life in subsidized housing.
Nice.
Failed in his attempts to become a rapper. Good try.
Me too.
Musician and managing previous political campaigns. An analysis of the 33-year-old's work history shows he's been employed for only approximately 3 years in the time between graduating college in 2014 and being elected to the New York State Assembly in 2020. Honestly impressive. Like,
it's impressive
3 years of work in your adult life. I'm a little envious.
It's impressive that a knucklehead like that has gotten this far. But, there is a sort of strain in the Democratic Party that you don't really have to do anything substantial in your life ever to be a sort of top figure. I mean, look at AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I mean, look at Barack Obama.
Full disclosure, Barack Obama at least was a community organizer for a little bit. I think he did work at a law firm. But AOC, full disclosure, graduated from the same high school I graduated
And that's why you love her.
Yorktown High School. Just full disclosure, I'm older than her by a couple years. she's catapulted because she can use social media, because she's telegenic. She catapulted to the top of the Democratic Party. She actually speaks to a certain portion of the base, which is far left. And this guy's the same thing. Listen, I just wonder, what's good for New York City and what's good for Chicago and these far left epicenters is got to be horrible for the National Democratic Party.
Yeah.
If you want to know why Donald Trump probably would win tomorrow, despite even low approval ratings, is that the people that he's up against will not be a Josh Shapiro, who's a moderate, the Pennsylvania governor. It will be against some lefty like this, the Jamal Bowman, the AOC, the Zohran Mamdani, the squad
type
people that are just like far left, not the brightest bulbs in the planet, and not only that, no experience doing anything else. I mean, it's really
that's not necessary. I mean, conservatives are so practical, and liberals, it's like you can just have an idea and a dream and you're set. But I think the last week, I feel like everyone, until a week ago, was dismissing the possibility that he could gain steam or potentially win.
Right.
And in the last week, I mean, I've spoken with so many people who are literally looking at moving somewhere else if he wins, looking at homes because they're worried that this could happen. One poll suggests he could beat Cuomo, but I mean, just the reality that he's this popular is insane. People are think that this could happen.
Well, New York City elected Bill de Blasio, who's really not that much different. We should point out the real estate community, which is a huge part of our economic base. There's, what's it called, finance, insurance, real estate.
I haven't heard that actually.
That's what it was known, for many years. New York economy is a little more diversified now, but the real estate industry still looms large. They are completely freaked out. I spoke with several top real estate people yesterday. They don't know what to do.
They're stuck,
New York City they are stuck, but let me tell you something. New York City has seen population and business exodus, for many years now. If you want to trace it back, 2010, but even after de Blasio got elected, it really ramped up. Since 2020, it's been parabolic.
But there is a tipping point.
Well, what is that?
60% of your salary on taxes?
I know that. But what I'm saying, the tipping point of people leaving, of course. Working class people are leaving left and right, and that's usually the tax base. If he does get elected, it would be really bad. I will say this, though. Even if Cuomo does get elected, and he's ahead by 10 points, he should win the Democratic primary, and then nominally should win the election because it's a Democratic-run city. I don't think people realize that the New York City mayor is a weak mayor.
Yeah.
Much of the stuff that goes on in Albany. If you wanted to cut taxes in New York City, you need Albany's blessing. The state legislature and the governor remains pretty anti-business and pretty leftist. And I would say that, even if Cuomo's in there, the tail is not going to wag the dog here.
You can address policing. You can address certain factors that impact people's everyday lives.
Some.
So, and I think Cuomo knows how to sort of gain power. I could see him taking this job and making it bigger than what it currently is right now.
Listen, I hope you're right. I actually know Andrew Cuomo pretty well. I've sat down with him. He professes to be a moderate. I will just say this. The last couple of years...
He likes to win.
He likes to win. But the last couple of years of Cuomo's term as governor really did witness a caving in to the left of the party. He promised that he would allow fracking upstate, did not.
Yeah.
He passed bail reform, which you can draw a line between bail reform and the spike in crime. And I can go on and on. I mean, he became sort of a captive of the left of the party. So now whether he
that was popular then, my thinking is it's not popular now, and so he's going to be more likely
popular where?
to accede to his donors and the people that he's chatting with. It's not popular with them now.
Look how what scares me about Andrew and I say this as someone who respects him, is that he is literally on issue after issue seemed to cave to the left. He's imposing a minimum wage of whatever. I mean, something much higher than it is now. I mean, you go down the list. He was talking about rebuffing Trump's attempts to use ICE to basically expel illegal immigrants, even criminals. I mean, this is not a good look, and I just hope this is all a ruse to get elected.
He can win.
But we've heard this before, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah. You have broken a few stories this week. The first is really interesting. You have the insight as to how Charlie Ergen, a longtime Democrat, got that meeting last week with Donald Trump.
So Charlie Ergen was on the verge of bankruptcy.
Many times, yeah.
Not him personally, but his big company.
Dish.
No, EchoStar, which
EchoStar.
owns Dish, but it's bigger than that. It holds all the spectrum, and it wants to compete against AT&T and Verizon as one of
They're
those.
supposed to be the fourth carrier.
The fourth carrier, right? So, but he's under investigation by the Trump FCC, Brendan Carr, the chairman, right? So he's under investigation. Brendan doesn't, nominally or allegedly doesn't believe he's building out his spectrum fast enough. The FCC could ask him to could take back the licenses, because remember, those are granted by the FCC. They were involved in this. Ergens tries to meet with Brendan Carr, keeps getting rebuffed, and then one day he gets a meeting with Trump, and he meets with Brendan Carr, and investigation looks like it's maybe gone. Now, no one could figure out exactly who set up the meeting. There was a Bloomberg story that kind of danced around it.
Right.
Who did set up the meeting, from what I understand from my sources, it was Chris Ruddy. Now, if you know who Chris Ruddy is, full disclosure, I like Chris.
Yeah.
Chris runs Newsmax, a conservative.
Former New York Post
Post reporter, and he built a career as a reporter.
Empire. I mean,
he's done very well. The company just went public.
Yep.
Right? So, by the way, the stock went up like 200% in one day, or 2,000% one day, and then it's back down, but it's still trading above its issue price.
He's still doing okay.
He's doing great. But he had a relationship with Ergen. So from what our sources are saying, and we're reporting this on the Money, is that Ruddy was the guy who set up the meeting.
Interesting. I mean, I would presume that his cable empire, to an extent, relies on a carrier.
And
like
Dish,
Ergen, right? So I'm sure it was mutually beneficial.
Well, Dish is always carried, legacy-wise, has carried Newsmax when others wouldn't.
Yeah.
So it was.
They got kicked off a few different cable carriers.
Well, they had. Listen, just so you know, I've been in this business a while. Every network has battles with their cable carriers over fees, and Chris had a few of those with various carriers. But what was interesting is that Ergen and he go back. I think it's a legacy carrier of Newsmax. So he made the call, from what I understand, and the rest is history. And by the way, stock is up. Or EchoStar
it's pretty amazing.
Is up 50% in the last 5 days.
If you can get Trump's ear, you can change the fate of a company. It's pretty incredible.
That is true. He's the Mac Daddy.
He sure is. Another thing I want to talk about this week, obviously everyone's talking about AI, the implications, is it going to take away jobs? We haven't really known a lot, and then this week we did get some news out of Amazon. Andy Jassy, the CEO, sent a memo to employees this week. He said, as we roll out more generative AI and agents, it should change the way our work is done. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today and more people doing other types of jobs. It's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company. So that's terrifying, because these sort of corporate jobs are like the last vestige, I think, of the American dream, where you can show up to a company, do a good job, get paid well, have a nice life, buy a home. Those jobs are going. Like, where are the people?
Do you remember 2001?
I do.
I remember 2001. I covered the .com bubble and crisis and essentially the lancing of the bubble, and I covered it as it was going up. And one of the things people were talking about back in the 2000s, 99, 2000, particularly as it was going wild, .coms like Pets.com, all these companies that would essentially blow up, was that .coms would lead to a massive sort of disintermediation of all sorts of jobs. You would lose jobs doing this, doing that.
It's creative destruction. That's capitalism.
But it created jobs too. And net, I mean, people thought it would be the end of malls. Now, no offense, there still are malls. There's one in I live in Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, but
There's
no,
malls,
like JC, like the mall in the town where I grew up, it's totally shut down.
Okay, so the malls got rid of the downtowns. Now the downtowns are coming back because malls are less important. There is a net here that with technology is usually positive. There's going to be a need to build out AI. There's going to be other jobs created by AI because you don't have to do.
But this is interesting because this is impacting. So far, when we've seen jobs change, it's typically a retail employee or it's somebody at a company who's manufacturing at a plant somewhere. This is truly all white collar jobs. This is bankers. This is and these companies care about the bottom line. They want to make as much money as they can. If they can fire a bunch of people,
you're still going to need certain people to
use
transact.
AI to do 50% of the work, then they're going to do
listen,
that.
I think, listen, the calculator got rid of certain jobs, I'm sure.
I think that, but this is a tectonic.
There was a buggy
shift.
whip. There was once a
there's-
buggy whip salesman. There is not a lot of jobs for buggy whip salesmen. I'm just telling you that.
But I mean, kids are already using it to do all of their homework, and teachers are already using the applications. Were
which will
already
free
saying
up,
within, like,
which
2
will free up,
years,
which will lead to other jobs
will
and
free up
other
kids to spend more time on TikTok.
maybe you need more. You need to, maybe it'll free up people to mine Bitcoin more. I have no idea how this is going. I'm being facetious here, but I have no idea how this is going to go, other than to tell you that there's never been technological advancement that hasn't led to more jobs. Usually, you don't disintermediate the entire workforce because of technology. It usually gets rid of some jobs and leads to more, and you could just see how many more jobs. By the way, the technology of AI is revolutionary in the medical field. I mean, just doctors are using it to save lives on cancer. This is literally revolutionary.
There's a lot of good there.
Yeah. And by the way, one of the best things about AI, it's going to get rid of people that are good at math, but I don't think you can replace reporters. There's no way. And I'm thinking about this. They're going to need reporters. Well, how do I know this? Because when you search AI, all it does is find my friggin' stories.
Aggregates, yeah.
It aggregates my stories, so they need me.
Until it's sentient, and then it's able to basically purloin things that it finds online and people's emails.
So it's
going to
call So they're going to call Jamie Dimon up. A robot's going to call Jamie.
I'm sure they can hack into his email. We're already seeing these
So wait a
systems.
second. AI is going to call
already,
Larry Fink and say, "Hand me."
They're not going to call him, but I'm sure they can access information online and emails he sent. I'm sure that's going to happen.
What would David Solomon say to an AI robot?
I don't think he'd return the call. if our relationship with him is any indication.
There's going to be jobs that
I'm okay if it takes over all the jobs if we get a universal basic income, and then we can just drink wine and
you and
sit on the
Andrew
beach all day.
Yang. Wasn't that the last New York City mayoral candidate that proposed that?
Yeah, and former presidential candidate.
Nice guy. Crazy. Nice guy.
My bet is that I'm going to say something dramatic. 50% of all white-collar jobs are going to be eliminated in the next
And there'll be no
5 years.
replacement for that.
Why would Andy send this memo to everyone? Well, it's a very alarmist memo.
Well,
why would you
know?
do that if it wasn't true?
What is Andy?
Of Amazon. These people have more data probably than Jerome Powell does.
Let's be clear. These guys focus on, and you should know this, the bottom line, quarter by quarter. He's thinking very short term. He's not, and by the way, it's not his job to think about all the revolutionary sort of modes of commerce that AI could create that will create jobs. His job is to make sure he satisfies the shareholders today, and his job is to keep people. And by the way,
don't you think the shareholders are going to be thrilled that there's less cost, and they're going to want to keep those costs down?
Why do you think he said that then?
Well,
it's not his job.
They're not going to want him to go out and hire more people.
No, but he wasn't. There'll be other jobs that hire people because of AI. It won't be at Amazon. Okay, so we need less people hitting a button, that sets a robot in motion to put a computer in a box, which is kind of what Amazon does, or ship me my supplements, from my Bounce and
Amazon does a lot of heavy lifting for us.
And AG Greens. Okay, I'm just telling you that there's going to be
full
other
of
jobs.
Microplastics.
Is AG Greens filled? No.
Yes, it is.
I don't believe that.
It is.
Joe Rogan says it's safe.